In the year 2347, humanity made a decision that shocked the galaxy. For centuries, Earth had been part of the Galactic Council, an alliance of intelligent species working together to maintain peace and order across the stars. But now, that era was coming to an end. President Andrew Hayes stood in front of cameras in a grand hall on Earth. His face calm but serious as he addressed billions of people spread across planets and space stations. His voice carried through speakers, reaching not only humans but also countless aliens watching with growing unease. Today marks a new chapter for humanity, he began, pausing briefly to let his words sink in. After much deliberation, we have decided to step away from the Galactic Council. This is not a choice made lightly, nor one driven by anger or resentment. It is a decision rooted in our belief that humanity must forge its own path, free from the constraints imposed by others. The room fell silent, save for the soft hum of recording devices capturing every word. Outside, crowds gathered in cities and colonies, their reactions ranging from cheers to protests. Some saw this as a bold move toward independence, while others feared it would lead to chaos. Across the galaxy, alien leaders scrambled to process the news. On distant worlds, debates erupted in council chambers and marketplaces alike. Humanity's departure wasn't just political, it was symbolic. A statement that they no longer needed anyone else to guide them. For years, humanity had played a key role in the council. They contributed advanced technology, shared resources, and acted as mediators during conflicts between species. But tensions had been building. Many humans felt the council treated them unfairly, imposing rules that limited their growth while favoring older, more established civilizations. Others argued that humanity's rapid expansion and ambition clashed with the council's cautious approach to exploration. These disagreements culminated in today's announcement, a historic moment that would reshape the galaxy. Among those listening was Emily Dawson, a journalist covering the event from inside the hall. She watched as President Hayes delivered his speech, noting the mix of determination and sadness in his expression. Later, she interviewed people outside, capturing their thoughts for her report. A young engineer named Daniel Carter expressed excitement about the future. "We've always pushed boundaries," he said with a grin. "This is our chance to see what we're truly capable of." Nearby, a mother holding her child looked less certain. "I hope this doesn't mean war," she murmured. "We've worked so hard for peace." Far beyond Earth, in the Council's headquarters on Xylos 9, ambassadors reacted with alarm. Ambassador Kale, a tall reptilian figure representing the Vaethra Empire, slammed his fist on a table during an emergency meeting. "This is betrayal," he hissed, his scales shimmering with agitation. "Without humanity, our alliances will crumble." Others nodded in agreement, though some remained silent, unsure how to respond. Lyra Noyce, a human representative who opposed the decision, tried to defend her species. "They're not abandoning us," she insisted. "They're simply choosing a different path." Her pleas went largely ignored, drowned out by louder voices. As night fell on Earth, the first ships prepared to leave orbit. Families packed their belongings, saying tearful goodbyes to loved ones staying behind. Children clung to toys shaped like rockets, unaware of the weight of the moment. In spaceports, engineers double-checked systems, ensuring everything was ready for the long journey ahead. The sight of starships lighting up the sky filled some with awe, while others felt a pang of loss. Humanity was walking out not just from the council, but from the life they'd known for generations. No one could predict what lay ahead. Would humanity find a new home among the stars? Or would their departure spark conflict, leaving the galaxy fractured and unstable? For now, all anyone could do was watch and wait as humanity took its first steps into the unknown. On Xylos 9, the headquarters of the Galactic Council buzzed with tension. The towering crystalline structures that made up the council chambers glowed faintly under artificial light, but the usual sense of order was gone. Delegates from dozens of species filled the grand hall, their voices rising in heated arguments. Ambassador Kale, a reptilian leader from the Vathra Empire, paced back and forth on the central platform. His sharp claws clicked against the polished floor as he addressed the assembly. "Humans have betrayed us," Kale declared, his voice low and dangerous. "They claim to seek independence, but what they truly want is power. Without them, our trade networks will collapse, and weaker species will fall prey to chaos." He pointed, a clawed finger at the holographic map hovering above the center of the room, showing Earth's location now marked with a blinking red symbol. "We cannot allow this to stand." Other delegates murmured in agreement, though not all shared Kale's anger. Some were more concerned about the practical consequences of humanity's departure. Trade routes once secured by human technology were already showing signs of strain. Supplies of rare minerals and energy resources began to dwindle, causing panic among smaller civilizations dependent on those goods. Ambassador Tezavalia, soft-spoken representative from the aquatic Naimari people, raised her hand to speak. "This is not just about betrayal," she said, her voice calm but firm. "It is about survival. Humanity has been a stabilizing force in the galaxy for centuries. Their absence leaves a void we may not be able to fill." She gestured toward the hologram, highlighting the interconnected web of alliances and trade agreements that had kept the Council functioning. "If we do not act quickly, this could spiral into disaster." Despite her measured tone, Tessa's words only fueled the growing unrest. Lyra Noyce, one of the few remaining human representatives on the Council, stood silently at the edge of the platform. Her heart sank as she listened to the accusations flying around the room. She had opposed humanity's decision to leave, believing it would harm both humans and the Council alike. Now, seeing the fear and anger in the eyes of her colleagues, she felt a deep sense of regret. "I tried to warn them," Lyra whispered to herself, clutching the railing tightly. When called upon to speak, she stepped forward reluctantly. "Humans are not your enemies," she said, addressing the crowd. "They left because they felt trapped by rules they didn't agree with. But that doesn't mean they wish you harm. We can still find a way to work together, if you're willing to listen." Her plea fell on deaf ears. Many delegates dismissed her as biased, unwilling to trust someone who represented a species they now viewed with suspicion. Others accused her of being naive, claiming humanity's actions proved they could never be trusted again. As the debate grew louder, Kale seized the opportunity to push his agenda further. "We cannot afford weakness," he growled, leaning forward menacingly. "The Council must take control now, more than ever. Those who cannot defend themselves should accept guidance from stronger species." His words sparked outrage among smaller delegations, who saw this as a threat to their autonomy. Shouts erupted across the chamber, drowning out any chance of reasoned discussion. Amid the chaos, a young aide named Marcus Reed sat quietly in a corner, observing the scene with growing unease. Marcus worked for the Council's intelligence division, tasked with analyzing data and predicting outcomes. What he saw now worried him deeply. The Council was fracturing before his eyes, and without unity. It might not survive the challenges ahead. As the meeting dragged on, Marcus noticed something else: a series of encrypted messages flashing across his console. They came from distant outposts along former human trade routes, reporting strange activity. Ships vanishing without explanation, communication signals disrupted, and unexplained energy spikes near abandoned stations. At first glance, these incidents seemed unrelated, but Marcus couldn't shake the feeling they were connected. Could humanity's departure have triggered something far bigger than anyone realized? By the time the session ended, exhaustion hung heavy in the air. Delegates filed out of the chamber, some muttering curses, others lost in thought. Outside, the cityscape of Zelos 9 shimmered under neon lights, a stark contrast to the turmoil within. For Marcus, however, there was no rest. He stayed behind, poring over the data, searching for answers. Whatever was happening, one thing was clear. Humanity's exit had set off a chain reaction, and its full impact was yet to be seen. Back on Earth, the atmosphere was a mix of excitement and uncertainty. Massive starships lined the launch pads, their sleek metallic surfaces gleaming under the bright sun. Engineers moved quickly between them, making final checks and adjustments. Among them was Daniel Carter, a young engineer with grease-streaked hands and a determined expression. He climbed ladders, tightened bolts, and ran diagnostic tests, ensuring every ship was ready for the long journey ahead. For days, people had been preparing to leave. Families packed their belongings into crates, choosing only what they could carry. Emily Dawson, the journalist who had covered President Hayes' announcement, walked through crowded spaceports, capturing moments with her camera. She spoke to travelers, asking how they felt about leaving everything behind. Some smiled, talking about new opportunities. Others looked down, their faces heavy with sadness. "I don't know if I'll ever see my hometown again," said an older man, named George, his voice trembling. "But I trust the president. If he says this is the right thing, then I believe him." Nearby, a mother held her daughter close, pointing at the ships. "That's our new home," she whispered, though her eyes betrayed doubt. As the hours passed, the reality of departure sank in. Children played with small models of spaceships, unaware of the gravity of the moment. Teenagers exchanged contact codes, promising to stay in touch even as they boarded different vessels. The air buzzed with activity, but beneath it all lay a quiet tension. No one knew where they were going or what awaited them beyond the stars. Captain Rachel Monroe stood near the largest ship in the fleet, overseeing preparations. Her dark hair was tied back neatly, and her uniform bore the insignia of the lead convoy. She spoke calmly into a communicator, coordinating with engineers and pilots. Despite the chaos around her, she exuded confidence. Still, when no one was watching, she allowed herself a brief moment of reflection. Leaving Earth wasn't easy, even for someone as focused as Rachel. "We're ready for launch," Daniel reported, approaching her with a clipboard. Rachel nodded, scanning the list of completed tasks. Everything seemed in order, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something might go wrong. Space travel was unpredictable, and leading such a large group added pressure. "Signal the fleet," Rachel said finally. "We move out in 10 minutes. Her voice carried over the noise, drawing attention from nearby crew members. One by one, ships powered up, their engines humming softly at first, then growing louder. The ground vibrated beneath everyone's feet as the countdown began. Emily found herself standing near the edge of the spaceport, watching the scene unfold. She thought about the stories she would write about courage, sacrifice, and hope. But as the ships lifted off one by one, ascending into the sky like streaks of light, tears welled up in her eyes. Below, crowds cheered and waved, but the sound was drowned out by the roar of engines. High above, the ships formed a formation, glowing against the blue backdrop of Earth's atmosphere. For a moment, they lingered there, as if saying a final goodbye. Then, with a burst of speed, they shot forward, disappearing into the vastness of space. Back on the ground, silence fell. People stared upward, their faces a mixture of pride and loss. Among them was Ben Parker, an 8-year-old boy clutching a stuffed toy rocket. His parents knelt beside him, explaining that they'd join the fleet soon. "Will we find a new home?" he asked, his voice small but curious. His father ruffled his hair and smiled. "Of course, buddy. Humans always find a way." Farther away, Rachel watched the same scene from her command deck. She adjusted her controls, guiding the convoy deeper into space. Ahead lay countless unknowns distant. Planets, uncharted territories, and perhaps dangers no one could predict. But for now, humanity had taken its first step toward a new future, leaving behind the world they once called home. The journey into deep space was harder than anyone had imagined. Days turned into weeks, and the initial excitement of leaving Earth began to fade. The convoy of ships moved together in formation, their lights flickering faintly against the endless darkness. Captain Rachel Monroe spent most of her time on the bridge, monitoring navigation systems and ensuring the fleet stayed on course. But even she couldn't ignore the growing challenges. Supplies were running low faster than expected. Food rations were cut, and water recycling systems struggled to keep up with demand. Engineers like Daniel Carter worked tirelessly to fix malfunctions, but the strain was evident. "We didn't plan for this," Daniel muttered one evening, as he tightened a loose panel in the engine room. His hands were raw from hours of work, and dark circles hung under his eyes. "If we don't find a solution soon, things are going to get ugly." Morale among the travelers suffered just as much as the equipment. Families huddled in cramped living quarters, trying to make the best of their situation. Children like Ben Parker grew restless, missing the open spaces and freedom of Earth. "I'm bored," Ben complained to his mother one day, kicking his stuffed rocket across the floor. She forced a smile and handed him a puzzle game, though her own frustration was clear. Even simple comforts felt distant now. Emily Dawson continued documenting the journey, but her reports grew quieter and more reflective. She interviewed crew members and passengers, capturing their thoughts during these difficult times. One woman named Laura Bennett, a scientist aboard the ship, spoke candidly about the toll of uncertainty. "We left Earth hoping for something better," Laura said, her voice tinged with sadness. "But out here, it feels like we've traded one kind of hardship for another." Rachel tried to stay positive, addressing the fleet over the intercom each morning. "We're pioneers," she reminded them. "Every challenge we face is part of building a brighter future." Her words provided some comfort, but they couldn't erase the reality of their struggles. Supplies weren't the only problem. Tensions between passengers began to rise. Arguments broke out over shared resources, and whispers of discontent spread through the ships. One night, Rachel stood alone on the bridge, staring at the vast emptiness outside the windows. Stars glittered faintly in the distance, but they offered little reassurance. She thought about the decision to leave Earth, and wondered if it had been worth it. Just then, an alarm blared, snapping her back to attention. A nearby asteroid field had appeared on the scanners, larger and denser than anticipated. Navigating through it would be dangerous, but turning back wasn't an option. "Alert all ships," Rachel ordered, her voice steady, despite the tension. "In the air. Prepare for evasive maneuvers." Across the fleet, crews sprang into action. Pilots adjusted trajectories, while engineers reinforced shields to protect against collisions. For hours, the convoy zigzagged through the chaotic field, dodging rocks that could tear through hulls. Sparks flew in the engine rooms as teams worked to stabilize overheating systems. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they emerged on the other side. The ships regrouped, battered but intact. Rachel let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "Good work, everyone," she said over the comms. Cheers erupted briefly, before fading into exhausted silence. They were safe for now, but the experience left its mark. Later, Daniel sat in the mess hall, picking at a meager meal. "You know," he said to Emily, who was jotting notes nearby, "we always talk about how humans adapt. But adapting doesn't mean it's easy." Emily nodded, adding his words to her journal. Outside the window, the stars seemed colder somehow, indifferent to the struggles of those passing by. Despite everything, humanity pressed onward. Each obstacle tested their resolve, but it also strengthened their determination. They had walked away from Earth seeking freedom and opportunity, and though the road ahead remained uncertain, they refused to give up. In the quiet moments between crises, Rachel often reminded herself of that truth. Humanity might be lost in the void between stars, but they still carried hope, and that was enough to keep them moving forward. Back on Xylos 9, The Galactic Council was falling apart. Without humanity's influence, the delicate balance that had kept the Alliance together began to crumble. Trade routes once maintained by human technology started to fail, leaving smaller civilizations stranded and desperate. Markets that relied on Earth's resources saw prices skyrocket, causing unrest among populations. Ambassadors argued endlessly, their debates growing louder and more heated with each passing day. Ambassador Kale of the Vathra Empire seized the chaos as an opportunity. He called for an emergency session, his sharp voice cutting through the noise in the council chamber. This is what happens when one species puts its own needs above the galaxy's, he hissed, pointing a clawed finger at the empty seat where humanity's representatives used to sit. Humans took their knowledge and left us vulnerable. Now weaker species will suffer because of their selfishness. His words struck a nerve. Smaller delegations, already struggling under the weight of collapsing trade networks, nodded in agreement. But not everyone shared Kale's harsh stance. Tessa Vale, the calm and thoughtful representative of the Naimari people, stood up to challenge him. Punishing others won't solve our problems, she said firmly. We need solutions, not blame. Humanity's departure has exposed weaknesses in our system, but we can still fix them if we work together. Kale sneered at her response. Work together? With who? The council is divided, and you know it. If we don't act decisively, this entire alliance will collapse. His gaze swept across the room, daring anyone to oppose him. Many delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats, torn between fear and hope. Some agreed with Kale's push for stricter control, while others worried it would only deepen the fractures within the council. Meanwhile, whispers spread about something far more alarming: a secret weapon humanity might have taken with them. Rumors suggested it was a powerful piece of technology capable of altering the balance of power in the galaxy. No one knew for sure if the rumors were true, but they fueled paranoia and distrust. Ambassador Marcus Reed, a young aide working behind the scenes, found himself overwhelmed by reports flooding in from distant outposts. Strange energy readings, missing ships, and unexplained phenomena near former human territories hinted at something unusual happening. Marcus spent long hours analyzing data in a dimly lit office, his face illuminated by the glow of multiple screens. He traced patterns in the incidents, searching for connections. At first glance, they seemed random ships vanishing without explanation, communication signals disrupted, and sudden bursts of energy detected near abandoned stations. But the more he studied, the clearer it became. These events weren't isolated. They formed a trail, leading deeper into space. One evening, Marcus approached Tessa Vale with his findings. I think there's something out there, he said cautiously, showing her a map marked with red dots. These anomalies are too consistent to be coincidence. Whatever humanity took with them, it's affecting things beyond just trade routes. Tessa frowned, studying the map carefully. If this is true, then the council needs to know. But how do we explain it without causing panic? She sighed, rubbing her temples. The last thing they needed was another reason for factions to turn against each other. As the days passed, tensions continued to rise. Kale pushed harder for his plan, demanding stricter oversight of weaker species. His aggressive tactics alienated some delegations, while others reluctantly supported him out of fear. Tessa tried to rally moderates, urging them to focus on rebuilding, trust and cooperation. But her efforts felt like shouting into a storm. The council was too divided to listen. In the shadows of the chamber, Marcus watched silently, feeling the weight of uncertainty pressing down on him. He knew the council couldn't afford to keep fighting among themselves. If the rumors about humanity's secret weapon were true and, if the strange anomalies were connected, it meant the galaxy faced a threat far greater than internal politics. Yet no one seemed willing to look beyond their immediate fears. Outside the council building, the city of Xylos 9 shimmered under neon lights, oblivious to the turmoil within. For now, life went on as usual. But deep inside the council chambers, cracks were forming not just in alliances, but in the very foundation of peace that had held the galaxy together for centuries. And unless someone acted soon, those cracks might widen into an abyss too vast to bridge.